ProShare, Nigeria's leading financial intelligence company, today released a new report that goes to the heart of one of the biggest problems that the country faces, entitled The Anatomy of Crude Oil Theft in Nigeria. The new research report contains 7 chapters to drill into a criminal enterprise that threatens the country's fiscal balance, even with wider implications. Raising the curtain on this report exclusively here on Arise is Tosin, a senior economist at Impact Research, a subsidiary of ProShare. Great to have you in the studios. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate this. Walk me through the executive summary. The executive summary, so it's about 10 pages, by the way, of this. What are the highlights?
Okay. Thank you for having me once again. And looking at the report, I'm sure you're probably familiar with ProShare. The way we do our things, there are annual reports and there are special reports. So this is one of the special reports. And so I like to begin by looking at the objective of it, because they say when the objective of a thing is not known, abuse is inevitable. So for us at ProShare, we actually set out with this report in a bid to contribute to the national discourse and, of course, elevate that discussion, because, as you said, we see the effect of this crude oil theft across board on all our fiscal, the monetary, and in every sphere of the nation. So we set out to contribute to this discourse, and also in a way we're trying to look for the lapses that actually created those challenges in the first place, so that we can provide solution to those issues. And of course, we looked at it in an inverted pyramid format. We looked on the global scene, and I must say that Nigeria still topped the chart of country with the issue of crude oil theft. And so from there, we moved to the country, and we looked at the state of things in Nigeria. We looked at the structure of the industry, and we actually commend what PIA has done in that instance. And of course, in the other chapter, we look at the spatial dimensions of these issues, looking at the various perception, and of course we broke it down really. We did where we have the perceptions of operators, the regulators, and of course we did our own data analysis, and we go about in that instance. We then looked at the dimensions of the report in the next chapter. That's the fifth chapter, and of course the last one we looked at the maritime strategy as a way to deal with this issue in that instance.
So, in terms of going back a little bit as to the conversation around why this report is very important, this is not the first time Nigeria is, oil theft is in the industry. So this is a very nice one. Thank you very much for bringing me a copy here. The first appear on any news channel in Nigeria. Thank you very much for bringing this to our eyes. So, understanding the graft, the impact and implications, what was that key objective, as you talk about the objective again? Is it because we're seeing the higher volume of the theft, or because it's in the news, everybody's talking about it, or the simple fact that we haven't been able to deal with it?
Okay, I think we incorporated everything, because as you said, I said earlier that we needed to contribute to the discourse on the issue of crude oil theft. So it's a major thing, because everyone is talking about it because of the impact. There are chapters there in the report that we actually showed an infographics that describe the various implications it's having on all sectors of the economy. In fact, we were able to establish that it's not only the government, even a common man, this issue is affecting us. And so, because also we have not also been able to deal with it, it's also feeding to the objective. And as you know us, in ProShare, we like to go beyond the noise, really, because we feel, yes, everybody is talking about it, but nobody has been able to put it into perspective. So that informed our decision. You remember our last report, the Tier 1 report, is still getting traction now.
In the banking industry.
Yeah, in the banking industry. You see what it is gaining. So that, again, is informed this particular issue that let's go beyond the noise. Let's try to structure everything. What really is the issue, so that we can provide.
So I'm looking at the scale of the oil theft that you captured in this report, and looking at the graphics that we took out from you, the crude oil theft headache and the power matrix. So explain some of this for me very quickly.
Okay, and so if you look at the graph, we're actually saying that if the economy or the security issues in our nations, the security framework put in place to tackle all of these things, if it is strong, And of course, we look at it from the oil thief side. If their own structure too is strong, then it becoming determinate in that instance. But if one is weak, the other will tend to benefit more. So if the oil thieves, they are stronger in terms of all their operations, and of course, even in the technology they use, if they are stronger, then they will seem to be having the upper hand, which is the situation we have now.
Balance of power.
Yes, so there is that need.
The criminal enterprise and the state and the government.
Yes.
So, in terms of what this report, because it's got an anatomy, is there a balance of power here between the state, the Nigerian government, the security and those who are in charge of oil, and the thieves who seem to be getting away and getting ahead with such that Nigeria is losing its #1 oil production position to Angola, for example?
Yeah, that's quite correct. Recently, we lost our position again. Yeah. In fact, we're producing less than than a million barrels now. And so, but coming back to what you said, really, we feel from the reports we were able to establish that the state of play of things now seems to suggest that those oil thieves actually have an upper hand as it is now. But let's give it a time that with this report now, with the traction, we're hoping that it will really generate, and of course, those solutions that emerge from the report, we feel really the state will also have the upper hand.
So let's get to where the what you call the whole it all boils down about impact and implications of this oil theft are huge and unprecedented in Nigeria's history, and that's why this particular graphics on the screen is beginning to hit me in terms of the fiscal revenue, the imbalance that we face, and how the oil thieves seem to be crippling the economy.
Yeah. Such
that today we seem to be at the mercy of the oil thieves.
Yeah, that's actually correct. We are basically at their mercy now, because I must say, as I talked about in several instances in the report, we described the various stakeholders in one hand, how it is affecting various stakeholders, the government, and again we looked at the impact and implication you talked about. We looked at it in, we used more like a pestle analysis, where we talked about the various dimensions of this issue. So we look at the political, we find out that it's becoming a national issue, and of course, we've seen political aspirant being an issue that they must tackle. So people, the stakeholders in that industry now are using it as a lobby point for who will become the president. So in that political issue there, we also see the host community. You remember the issue it generates, that 3% that was allocated to the host community. So there's a political issue. Yeah, through the PIA. It's a political issue on its own. And of course, we also look at the economy. That's what everybody knows, the effect on the foreign reserve, on our revenue, and different other resource utilization, and the rest of them. We know those effects, that's very common, but we also look at the diplomacy aspect of it. You know, many countries that want to relate with Nigeria, that's the first thing they will look at. What's your resource? What do you have as a nation? So they are looking at our resources. And of course, you remember many of those countries that had come to us recently, the Poland, the rest of them, it is still on the oil and gas that they are talking about. And of course, if we are losing this crude oil to thieves, and what do you expect? So we don't have anything as an object of diplomacy with foreign countries. So it's an aspect we also look at. We look at the military aspect of it. We find out that many of our military personnel want to go to the oil region. So it's undermining the objectivity of those military operations in that instance. So we looked at that. And of course, we also look at the finance and the risk aspect of it. We find out really that for us as a nation, because of all these issues that we've mentioned, I've talked about, our cost of production is one of the highest among oil producing nations. So all across board, these ones are details, I think from page 59, we details all of these dimensions into it. And of course, we also
in terms of getting a barrel out of the ground.
Oh, out of the ground, yes.
I think we're roughly around $20 a barrel.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia is between $8 and $9 a barrel. Yeah. So if you look at the market, at about $80, $90 a barrel now, we're not getting much value from every barrel we're getting out of the ground. But again, when you talk about the case for a national marine strategy for the blue economy, but first, how do we deal with these crude oil thefts to elicit a report of this nature from ProShare that you've seen, that means how big it is. That was shown footage of the oil minister, Timothy Silva, the group managing director of the NNPC. All of body's talking about it. There have been issues between the military itself, pointing fingers at the NNPC, and all fingers have been pointed across board at everyone else. So, what are the quick, dirty, and long-term fixes of this criminal enterprise? Do you folks at ProShare has a solution? Is it in this book?
Yes, we covered the solution there. And I must say, the scale in itself it's a different conversation. It's another issue on its own. The scale of oil theft. Because first, we established that the first problem with crude oil theft in Nigeria is the issue of data. We don't have data for all of this issue. That's why. What's it that we don't have data for? We don't have a data as to how much is stolen, or how much we're producing, or how much we're losing. We don't have data for it. From both sides, we can look at it from both sides, because of course we've seen a wide margin with what OPEC report as a secondary source and of course the primary source. We've seen that wide margin there. So of course it speaks to some data issues there. And of course, even in terms of the crude oil theft, there are data issues.
Yeah, some say it's 600,000 barrels a day, some say it's 700,
but then we're able to establish somewhere in, I think, page 56, that we actually did a scenario analysis. So we came about as a baseline scenario that that's the 200,000 barrel they talked about. And we found out there's also a floor to it. We put our floor at 150,000 barrel, and we have placed our cap on the 400,000 barrel, because we're not able to establish beyond that those ones can be attributable to theft. So we did that scenario analysis, and we put it daily, the figure, the amount in terms of annually what we're losing. And of course, for the minimum, we're losing around $5.3 billion. For the baseline scenario, we're losing $7.3 billion. And for the cap, we're looking at losing over $16 billion. So that's, of course, if you put that to some fraction of foreign exchange, we're losing around 40% of our foreign reserve. So that scale is quite massive.
So were you able to link oil theft to the pressure that the central bank is under in terms of the availability of FX?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The nexus?
Absolutely. We linked it. Even in the various dimensions, when we talked about the economic aspect of it that I said on around page 59, we looked at it beyond those places. We looked at that linkage of how it's affecting foreign exchange. Because I must say that the governor of Emefiele, the governor of Central Bank, is actually correct in that instance. This issue of oil theft is one of the reasons why we are not, our Naira is losing value, because you remember that the recent downgrade by JP Morgan, the bond index, they downgraded us from overweight. So it's one of those issues, because we are not remitting those to our accounts.
The airlines too at some point. I'm not sure we've fully paid up.
That's why we say we can't.
Because the thieves, the oil thieves are stealing our resources. And we can't catch the thieves there. Do you guys have any idea who the thieves are? Are there names in this report?
Well, we didn't set out to bash anybody, of course.
I can't find their names here.
We didn't set out.
But you guys have the names of the thieves.
Okay, that's confidential.
Anyway. Oh, that's confidential. Okay. I was thinking if that's in this report, and they could just say, oh yeah, what page do I go to if I want to find out the names or the identity of those?
Of course, you're familiar with our report. We do not set out to bash.
It's not about naming names.
So we don't name. So
yes. But again, talking about the issues, really, who are those behind it in terms of your research findings without naming names?
Okay, without naming names, I think, let me structure it this way, that we find out that for the scale of oil theft in Nigeria, and that again is in, I think, page 56, thereabout, and we find out that the scale of oil theft suggests that you actually need supporting infrastructure. For you to steal this thing in Nigeria, you need the skill and expertise, you need the political support, and of course, you need the security architecture even in place. And of course, you need some of your value chain partners. Now, all of these issues, of course, you know the players in each of those sectors, so all of them are actually involved in this issue of oil theft.
So this is not a flight in the night?
No, it's not. So it is not. And of course, that's why we're coming up with one of the high points that was suggested really is that maritime strategy.
Yes, tell me about that, so just to conclude.
Okay, so, well, as I said, we are looking at the maritime strategy for the offshore. Of course, you know that this issue, some play out in the onshore and some play out in the offshore. So for the onshore, we have a model that we suggest there from, I think, from page 64, it's quite detailed there on what we believe. And of course, I must say that we weigh the intervention, the current interventions of the regulators and of course the NNPC and other operators. We weigh those, their interventions, and of course we now provide our own. So but for the offshore, that is, again, details in the from page 76, we details the maritime strategy. We find out that we are really not utilizing our potential in that maritime strategy. Beyond dealing with crude oil theft on the Nigerian waters, there are potential for us to actually harness as a nation in our waters. We looked at countries that have used this model, like the India and the rest of them. We looked at how they've been able to, what they are profiting from this strategy. And we find out that it's because we lack what is called the maritime strategy.
Okay, so we need a maritime strategy.
We need a maritime
In terms
strategy.
of the interventions that we've seen so far from the government agencies like the NNPC, are they optimal? How do you value that?
We must commend that some of them are working, but of course there are still some limitations to it. We looked at the various interventions. I'm sure you know this, the hub that was launched recently to report, and of course that could incentivize some people because there's a reward, so people can be incentivized to use that. And of course we understand also now that they have a command center where they looked at some of those things, but we feel like that now is quite static, not dynamic.
Maybe if you have a final page that is empty, I'm going to write maybe a whistleblower policy. If I know where oil is being stolen, and I tell, maybe I get some barrels of oil in return.
Yeah, NNPC promised some barrels. I was checking their websites on this, and I found out
it's available. I haven't checked that. How come? Don't go there before me.
All right.
No, make sure you don't. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tosin, we appreciate that, and thank you very much for making this exclusive to us first here on Arise News. Thank you so much. We wish you all the best at ProShare, senior economist at Impact Research, a subsidiary of ProShare. Tosin.